Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Syracuse Football Postgame presented by Kraus Health. Drama in Blacksburg. And this time, Syracuse ends up on the right side of the drama, defeating the Hokies by a final score of 41-36. So Syracuse improves to 4-4 on the 2021 season. And what a moment it was. Damian Alford, the 45-yard touchdown pass from Garrett Schrader with 19 seconds remaining in the game. And Syracuse improves to 4-4 by the hair on their chinny chin chin. 4 straight games prior to this, Syracuse had played in 3-point games. It was a 2-point game until that final touchdown pass by Garrett Schrader. So instead of a 3-point game, Syracuse ends up with a 5-point victory here, but certainly more drama, more fourth quarter close calls for Syracuse. And I'll tell you what, folks, despite some added to the list clock management issues for Syracuse football at the end of the first half, that was just frankly a disaster, what we saw there. But they overcame that. They overcame a down day from the defense. They overcame a lot of issues in this game, and Garrett Schrader shined. This was clearly Garrett Schrader's best day as quarterback for Syracuse football in a week where Tommy DeVito enters the transfer portal and Garrett Schrader is fully in the driver's seat as the quarterback for Syracuse football. He shined in this game. I mean, his numbers were incredible in terms of, a third straight game, a third game this season, I should say, over 100 yards rushing for Schrader, 174 yards, 3 touchdowns. He actually outrushes Sean Tucker in this game, who set a Syracuse record with his 6th straight 100-yard game. Tucker in 112 yards and a touchdown. Schrader 16-34, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns. A touchdown pass down the stretch to Courtney Jackson, which was big, and cut that Virginia Tech lead down to 36-34. And then a pass from Schrader to Alford with 19 seconds to go that lifts Syracuse to victory. And man, 4-4, there is a big, big difference between 4-4 and 3-5 for this football team. Big. And if Syracuse is going to keep kind of scratching and clawing its way to the 6-win plateau, which they need to get to qualify for a bowl game, this was as big as it gets in terms of grabbing a win on the road. They're still going to have to win down the stretch here, but starting today with 5 games remaining, now 4 with Syracuse in the books here at 4-4, getting a win on the road was absolutely crucial for this team. So we are going to cut into Dino Babers' press conference here shortly. I see our friend Nate Mink setting that up, so we'll listen into a few things that Coach Babers has to say after this one. But let's highlight a few of your comments so far. There's Jermaine, pretty happy about this one. Mary Ellen says, finally pulled one out. Schrader had a great game. He certainly did. John notes the coaches continue to try and lose games the end of the half. What was that? Then down by 2 scores, no urgency. Yeah, the coaches don't get a pass for this one, certainly. That end of the first half, as we'll discuss here, and I'm curious what Dino has to say about it here, just not good. Just more questionable play calling, clock decisions, using back-to-back timeouts. Sean Tucker doesn't even get the football in that situation. I mean, this is what can happen in football. You can get away with one, or it can come back to bite you. And it's just been incredible to see how coaching decisions have played so big in these last 5 games. Special teams was absolutely massive in this game, and Syracuse ended up winning, but you had a blocked extra point that goes 2 points the other way for Virginia Tech. Only Syracuse could be in a spot where they're about to tie the game. Instead, it turns into a 3-point swing where Virginia Tech takes a 16-13 lead on a block extra point. Andre Schmidt, as a part of that disastrous string there at the end of the first half, misses a 19-yard field goal, right? Virginia Tech had a huge kick return, but on the positive side for Syracuse on special teams, Trevor Pena, who had a 62-yard catch a week ago, had a nice 17-yard carry in this game on a little bit of a razzle-dazzle play. Huge kickoff return for Trevor Pena, 51 yards in the fourth quarter, which puts Syracuse in position to get that score. So it's a case of They were this close to special teams costing them this game. They were this close to coaching decisions costing them this game. Mistakes. There were some holding penalties down the stretch. I'll tell you where Dino Babers does deserve some credit today, though, and that is fourth down decisions. Syracuse was 4 of 4 on fourth down. Certainly one of them, the 4th and 2 late in the game. You got to go for that. There's no choice there. But there were some fourth downs that could have gone either way in terms of decision making. Maybe you would have agreed if Syracuse didn't go for it. They were 4 for 4 on fourth down. That is absolutely huge. That is a reversal of what we've seen from Babers in recent games. And I think you got to appreciate that. He reversed course on that, realized you got to go for it on these things, that you can benefit by going forward on these things. Tucker actually ran for a touchdown on one fourth down play because Virginia Tech was so keyed in to stop him in short yardage. He just looped around the end and scored. That's why you run those plays. That's why you do that. So I will give him credit for that. Andy says if Garrett started week 1, like he should have, maybe Taj Harris would still have been here. I mean, Schrader is certainly improving in the passing game. There's no question about that. He's 16 to 34, a couple of drops and some things today that you'd like to see back, but he really struggled throwing the ball a week ago against Clemson. Really struggled to throw the ball short of that Trevor Pena throw. And look, that's where I got to give him a lot of credit. Scott's saying, hey guys, we won. Let's enjoy this one. I got to give Schrader a lot of credit because right up until that point, I mean, it was a legit thing to say, maybe put Tommy DeVito in the game last week against Clemson because Syracuse just could not get the ball down the field. And then right in that moment, he delivers that 62-yard strike to Trevor Pena. This game, that touchdown throw to Damian Alford that we mentioned, he took a real shot on that play. He took a huge pop on that play, hung in there until the absolute last second on both throws last week and this week that he had to, took a huge pop. And that's concerning in a way, right? Because Syracuse no longer has a viable backup quarterback that is consistent and known, right? Tommy DeVito's in the portal. He's no longer there. We saw a little bit of Jacoby and Morgan last year, but certainly if Garrett Schrader does get hurt, Syracuse is going to be in a very interesting position when it comes to its backup quarterback, where you kind of knew what you had in your backup quarterback with Tommy DeVito, but obviously that is no longer the case. Jeff says, aside from Pena, special teams is atrocious. Yeah, look, that came up this week in that Syracuse is one of 7 Power 5 schools that does not have a special teams coordinator. And Justin Lustig, their previous special teams coordinator who ended up at Vanderbilt, is a terrific special teams coach. Syracuse special teams has been excellent in recent years. That has not been the case this year. If it's the penalties, if it's the missed kicks, if it's bad holds, the 48-yard kick last week that Schmidt tried to hit, the laces were in. And as I learned from Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, and Ray Finkel, the laces have to be out, right? James Williams has struggled to punt the ball. You said it, Jeff. Aside from Pena, this has just been a real struggle, and it came up again today. I mean, the ghost, not that Frank Beamer's dead. I was about to say the ghost of Frank Beamer. He was actually there today. But Frank Beamer's influence looms over this game and how important special teams is. Those 3 points could have cost Syracuse just as easily as they scored that touchdown to win the game. It's, a game of inches and those close calls and those decisions that win or lose football games like this. So I think that's a fair point there from Jeff. Yeah, Kevin kind of showing the mixed bag, some fans here. They go down and win a tough one in Blacksburg and people still aren't satisfied. Yeah, a win, tends to hide a lot of your flaws, but certainly it doesn't hide all of them, right? So a mixed bag for sure in this one. But, the win helps overcome a lot of those things. Winning is the ultimate elixir, right? But, man, some of those, that stretch before the end of the first half, 14 seconds to go, 2 timeouts in your pocket, well within striking distance. Garrett Schrader runs 21 yards to the 1 yard line. And then you had a situation where for some reason you're throwing a fade pass there. You're not giving the ball to Sean Tucker. There's back-to-back timeouts. And not only that, Syracuse comes away with that with no points because Andre Schmidt can't hit a 19-yard field goal. There's definitely something wrong with him. Any golfer that's ever struggled knows you get a little hitch in your swing, something like that. It can really get in your head. But I'll tell you what, let's go down to Blacksburg. Dino Babers is at the podium here. Let's listen into a little bit of what the head coach is saying.
raise hands because obviously it's a different setup. So we're going to start with questions and just respect everybody else and kind of rotate around. Good. Thank you. But Ross, start. Get going.
Nate, why don't you start off?
5 straight games that have essentially come down to the final possession to eke one out after the last 3. Euphoric? What was sort of the sentiment you tried to express to the guys after this week?
I think the biggest thing is just there was some family times. There were some times in that game where mom and dad was being questioned. There were some times when the children were being questioned and grandma and grandpa was being yelled at. Nobody yelled at grandma and grandpa. And I can't believe the stuff that we were talking about the grandkids about. And they're just young, and we shouldn't be talking about those grandkids because they still need to grow up. And then after the Kumbaya meeting, I think we came back out the second half and played a lot better. And I think that's what we need to do to be the team that we want to be. And I think this is going to be one of those moments. I really see it's going to be one of those moments where it starts to change. And I can't promise you it's going to change in W's and L's, but I can tell you it's going to change in everything else.
So was the final sequence at the end of the first half, the proverbial line in the sand for your guys? Like, is that when emotions started to spill out that you referenced in the locker room?
We had a nice Kumbaya meeting at halftime.
I guess for stuff like this to be repeatedly happening.
You got to speak up a little bit.
For this kind of stuff to be happening repeatedly in a season, more than once in a season.
Okay, you got to tell me exactly what you're talking about because we may be talking about 2 different things.
Maybe personnel not knowing which personnel should be on the field.
Oh yeah, that's not good. No, that needs to stop today. Yeah, that's not good.
How did you try to deliver that message today?
That wasn't so much to the players.
To the coaches, right?
And then
how does that message, not knowing how football operation works, right?
Oh yes, you do.
I don't know what it's like on a sideline. Is it the position coach who makes sure that the right personnel is on the field out of the timeline?
I'm responsible for everything, so it's on me. My hands are on it.
Garrett looked better throwing the ball today than I think we've seen him all year long. Was something different today in chemistry with the receivers? Was it that Kumbaya?
He throws okay. He throws okay. It's not the prettiest thing, but it'll get better. You know what I mean? It'll get better, and it may not change this year, but you've got 2 more years for it. So he'll get better, but he did okay.
If you're making a movie about today, if you're making a movie about today, the Kumbaya meeting is a scene. What is the quotable line of the most important scene?
The quotable lines? Oh, you went deep for that one. I should give you some real cards. This is how it goes. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. Okay, you ready for the story? My dad, who's passed away, in the National Cemetery in Houston, went 20 years, 6 months in the Navy. We was living in Nassau, okay? It's in California, Navy Air Station, number 1. And he took the whole family down for a vote, and we voted where we were going to retire at. And all the kids loved Nassau, and our mom loved Nassau. There's 2 other brothers and 3 sisters. The vote was 7-0 for us to stay in Nassau. My dad, who's passed away. And then he got the vote, he counted the votes, and then he looked at all of us and he said this: if you think I spent 20 years and 6 months in the Navy to live in Nassau, you must be blip, 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 blip. We're moving to San Diego. There comes a time in a family sometimes when it's time to go, and if you're part of the family and you're not the dad, you need to fall in line and listen.
Hey, Coach, the first throw that Garrett made at the start against Liberty last month was overthrown a deep ball to Damien. What does it mean for Garrett? What does it mean for them too? And what does it mean for the team that there was a different result this time?
I was teasing deep Damien inside. I'm like, Did you catch it the first time, the second time, or the third time? It just seemed like it was in his hands for a long time. But to see him make that play, and Garrett never saw the play. Go back and check the tape. Garrett's on his back. He never saw the play. He could barely breathe when I got to him, and he's like, I said, stop making all that outgoing noise and wait for a touchdown. Get up and act like you're a hero. You know, it was a heck of a throw, and it was a heck of a catch. And I'm excited for Damien because he's a freshman. There's big things for him down the road.
That is the second game in a row that he hung in there and just got absolutely crushed to deliver you guys a touchdown pass. What does it mean to the wide receivers in your offense to see him willing to do that?
Well, football's like that. It's and that's why you guys don't take this wrong. There's a bunch of bulls in there, and when bulls, they don't kill each other, but a lot of times they wow, and bump heads with each other because there's got to be a dominant bull. But I look at Schrader and I look at the things he's done, and I just think he really, really wants to win really, really bad. When you've been somewhere and someone says you can't, and then you go somewhere else and now people say you can, you don't want to let them down. And I think that winning attitude it's always been here, but when someone is exploiting it, whether it's an offensive lineman, Aaron Service, doing amazing things to get his body back, or things happen with Carrasco.
Okay, there is Dino Babers listening in to a little bit of what he was saying at his post-game press conference there. Had some interesting takes there about the Kumbaya meeting at halftime. Wouldn't really get into detail about that. He did take some blame for the personnel not being in the right place at the right time at the end of the half there, and a couple other strange Dino things that Dino does and tells family stories about things to kind of divert from giving details about a specific thing. But he's a winning coach today, and Syracuse is 4-4 after this one. A few more numbers I wanted to get into here. You guys with some great comments, so keep those coming as we chat here. Really encouraging to see the wide receivers get involved here. Courtney Jackson, 7 catches, 86 yards, and a touchdown. He had the touchdown that cut the Virginia Tech lead in the fourth quarter. I love watching this kid play. He's getting better week after week. When Taj Harris left, it opened up an opportunity for Garrett Schrader to connect with a couple of receivers out there. I thought Anthony Quealy would be that guy. I still think he can be that guy, but Jackson has been terrific for Syracuse. He's great after the catch, the old yak, as Paul Pasqualoni would say, yards after the catch. That's yak. He's great at that. The touchdown pass that he had, the 24-yarder, beautiful route. He is really establishing a rapport with Garrett Schrader here. Damian Alford, of course, the 45-yarder. He has flashed all year long, and it's been somebody that they're looking for deep. He's a big target, 6'6" down the field. To see him get a winning touchdown is just reassurance to what he's been so close to doing all year long. Sherrod Johnson with a 38-yard catch, that was a big one as well. So to see Schrader throw confidently, to start making connections with these guys here, I don't know, maybe Taj Harris left a little early. Maybe if he had stuck around, and I don't begrudge him wanting to go somewhere else, that's his decision. But Syracuse went to this ground and pound approach with Schrader and Sean Tucker, and why wouldn't you, given the talents of both of those players? But maybe it's better that Taj is not here because he kind of demanded the ball a lot. He sucked up a lot of oxygen in the room, and it's more of a kind of spread out approach for the offense in terms of passing the ball. And I do think Quealy will get back into this thing. Pena is getting involved in the passing game now, so great to see some improvement there. A couple other stats we've got to throw out there. While we're praising the offense, this was not a good day for the Syracuse defense. Frankly, it was a disappointing day for the Syracuse defense. This is a Virginia Tech offense that came in. Let me pull up the numbers while we're talking about it here. They came into this game dead last in the ACC in total offense, 13th in rushing and scoring offense, 11th in passing offense. They were 111th in the country when it came to scoring, 22 points per game. Today, Virginia Tech, 64 plays, 437 yards. That's a season high. Their 36 points was the season high. The Syracuse defense just didn't do its job today. And that's not only disappointing, it's also surprising because usually Tony White's defense will clamp down on a team like this. You had a couple of guys for Virginia Tech score their first touchdowns of the year. Burmeister was out there running, just to throw a couple numbers out there for Virginia Tech. Robinson, 3 catches, 57 yards for this team. You had Thomas gain 151 yards and score 3 touchdowns, including that 47-yarder in the fourth quarter. Blackshear had 78 yards on the day. A Virginia Tech running back had not been over 60 yards in an individual game this year, and Syracuse let those rushers do that. So certainly a disappointing day for Tony White's crew, maybe a day that's not typical of this defense, but teams have been moving the ball a little bit better on Syracuse and up in some of those averages since the Orange entered ACC play. Garrett Williams did not play in this game today, but the rushing was the problem for Syracuse, stopping the run, which is typically not a big issue for them. But a couple other numbers to throw out there. Syracuse with 314 rushing yards on the day. That'll help counter a bad defensive effort there. Of course, Schrader and Tucker. Sean Tucker, I believe I mentioned this, but worth repeating, a new Syracuse record, 6 straight 100-yard games, 1,000 yards rushing. He is the first Syracuse running back to do that since 2012, and he is the first running back in college football this year to cross the 1,000-yard plateau. If this Syracuse team was 6-2, if this Syracuse team was 7-1, which it very well could be, that's what makes that 4-4 mark sting a little bit. That kid's in the Heisman conversation, and frankly should be in the Heisman conversation, even playing for a 4-4 football team. But we know that's not how that works. But he is clearly one of the best running backs in college football. Give that guy the 44. This ridiculous notion that Syracuse is going through about, and I certainly would expect John Wildhack to want the input and respect the input of Rob Conrad, the family of Floyd Little, Jim Brown, the family of Ernie Davis. Throw Terry Richardson and Michael Owens in there too, who also wore the 44. Their input is certainly needed, but the buck should not stop there. This whole, we have to respect the 4 families thing. This is not a mafia decision here. Can I do my bad Vito Corleone for you guys for a moment here? You got to give the 44 to Sean Tucker. He's a good running back. He deserves it. You don't need the blessing of the 4 families. Just give him the number, right? Let's give that kid the 44 at this point. He has earned it. He deserves it. And it's time to get that tradition back out there on the field. Syracuse was 4 of 4 on 4th down today. The fourth down, a lot of 4s in there, speaking of 44, was necessary. You had to go for it. There was no decision to be made. But there are other 4th down conversions in this game. Could have easily punted, could have easily not gone for it, could have easily not done what Syracuse did. They were aggressive. They ran the plays they needed to. So I'll give Babers credit for that. The end of the first half was a disaster. Coaching decisions have held this team back this year from being a better team, frankly, but at least they did it in this game. Syracuse was 7 of 16 on 3rd down in this game as well. All right, let's hop back in here and see what. Did you guys like that Vito Corleone? It's a little rusty. I'm working on it, but I appreciate that. RJ makes a good point there. He's making 34 his number and making his mark. And that is a great point. That is certainly if he wants to be 34 instead of 44, hey, man, you go do you. But he has expressed interest in wearing that 44. And if this keeps up and he is still interested in it, I think it's time that Syracuse kind of overcomes their little committee here and just get that thing back on the field. But what a star. What a star Sean Tucker has become. Teams gear up on this guy. They put 8 in the box. Opposing defensive coordinators spend all week long getting ready for this kid, and it doesn't matter. He's had 6 straight 100-yard games. That's a Syracuse record, as we noted. Schrader, of course. This ground and pound approach that Syracuse has put out there, it keeps them in games. Right? The passing game is starting to come along. You need your defense to be better than it was today. You certainly need your special teams to be better than it was today. And that's the thing. This team plays hard. This team is fun to watch. The coaching holds this team back. I hate to say it, but it's true. Coaching decisions in key spots have held this team back from being better. And that's disappointing. So hopefully the players will continue to overcome that, make these plays. Schrader shows some real guts out there in running on 4th down, the passes that we talked about. Now that he's comfortable and he's in an offense that suits him and he feels like he's wanted and he feels like it's his team. With 4 games to go, I can't wait to see what Schrader continues to do. And I was on the Tommy DeVito train for a long time. I mean, I'll admit that. It took me a while to get off it because he was just so ingrained as the guy. And, I still had my doubts about Schrader in some moments, but he's got some intangibles in terms of, on the spot, in the moment plays where he comes through. He comes through. The Pena toss a week ago, the throw to Jackson, the throw to Alford this week, some of those 4th down plays that I talked about. He's aggressive. He'll go for it. Not a comparison by any stretch to Brett Favre, but he's got some Brett Favre in him, right? And that in those moments, he's not afraid. He's just going to charge maybe some Josh Allen in him too, to use a current reference as a Buffalo Bills fan. So I've been impressed with Schrader. Not a good week throwing the ball last week, but he overcame that this week. And there's not as good of a defense that Syracuse is going to play until they play Pittsburgh. And when Syracuse gets to Pittsburgh, that's going to be a really interesting game. Who's trying to knock off Clemson as we speak here, as we talk live here on Saturday afternoon. A couple more of your comments here. I appreciate you guys being active in the chat as always here. Mike says, has anybody won the Heisman on a 7-5 team? Paul Hornung won the Heisman in 1956 over Jim Brown on a 2-9 Notre Dame team, and shouldn't have won the Heisman over Jim Brown or anybody that year. But, Notre Dame's Notre Dame, and the way that the Heisman was handed out back then, just, to the most hyped player in the country at this point. So it is possible it has happened, right? But unlikely in this case. Heisman's pretty wide open this year, though. There's no one player that's kind of taking command at this point. Some of the early favorites, like a Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma, DJ Uiagalelei from Clemson, obviously have not lived up to billing. So at least Tucker has moved into the national conversation. And if he doesn't get there this year, he will absolutely be a favorite to win the thing next year. So I just wish Syracuse kind of held up their end of the bargain team-wise. If they're 7-1 right now, he could be the Heisman favorite. It is that simple. William says the Dome would be rocking next week when BC comes to town. Let's go Orange. And it's one of the few remaining home games for Syracuse. BC, they had a stretch there where 5 of their first 7 games were at home, lost to Rutgers, lost to Wake Forest, lost to Clemson, just lost too many home games that were right there. Barely beat Liberty at home as well. So Syracuse is going to have to win a couple on the road down the stretch here, and they got one today against Virginia Tech. Joe says, hardly a one-trick pony right now, doesn't throw it particularly well. Talking about Schrader, I think he is getting better throwing the ball. Certainly not a strong suit, but made the throws today he had to make. Certainly, Rob says it's the best running team in the Division I game right now. Allison agrees that I absolutely think he could be. So the one thing, too, with Syracuse, they get Boston College next week. Let me pull up the schedule while we're yakking about it here, because this team needs a bye week. I mean, this team loves drama, close games, physical play. Schrader's taking shots. You lost Garrett Williams today. Chris Bleich also did not play. And a few players out there that were, as Dino Babers would say, kind of fighting through the owies in this one. This is a football team that needs a bye week, and they're going to get it soon. But they've got Boston College next week at the Dome, homecoming game for Syracuse. That is a 3:30 kick. They get the bye after that, a desperately needed bye week on November the 6th, and we'll be starting to get into basketball right around then. Syracuse comes back, and this is what the stretch looks like for Syracuse in its last 4. Home to Boston College, at Louisville, at NC State, home to Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh starting to pull away maybe as the favorite in the ACC. Speaking of Heisman, Kenny Pickett's having a Heisman level year right now. That's going to be a tough final game for Syracuse, particularly if they need that 6th win to get bowl eligible here. So 4 games to go, 2 wins to get bowl eligible. And the way Syracuse is playing, I mean, they're just in every game. They're going to be in every game. The drama's coming in the 4th quarter. Get ready for it. We've seen it all year long for this team. I've never seen a stretch of close games like this from Syracuse. Take away the Albany game. That Rutgers game was close down the stretch. Albany was, the practice game that counts as a win. Then you go 24-21, 33-30, 40-37 in overtime, 17-14, 41-36. Can your heart take it for 4 more games? We shall see. That's when we'll meet again, by the way, friends. Next Saturday, Syracuse has a 3:30 kickoff against Boston College. So we'll be here live on the Syracuse Orange Sports YouTube page and on our Syracuse Orange Football Facebook page. If you miss it, this does archive on YouTube on Syracuse Orange Sports. You can find it in my recap on syracuse.com. We fire it off our SYR Football at SYR Football Twitter page as well. So certainly you can always catch up and watch the replay of the show if you do miss it, presented by our friends at Krause Health. So we'll end there for today and look forward to talking to you guys again next week. Woo! No matter what, no matter how close it was, no matter how they tried to pull, how's that old expression go? Pull a victory from the jaws of defeat. How they botched clock management, game calling at the end of the first half, special teams mistakes, all the things that were leading to yet another close but so far away type of game. They won. They beat Virginia Tech by a final score of 41-36. So at the very least, the stress was worth it, as the Orange will go into next week with a victory, and you can enjoy the rest of your weekend with Syracuse victorious. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, by the way. We'll meet again here next week after the Orange take on Boston College. Thanks, as always, for hanging out. My name's Brent Axe. We'll talk to you next time on Syracuse Football Postgame, presented by Krause Health.